Hello, my name is Joy Payton-Stevens, and I'm a cellist with the Seattle Symphony. I changed out of my pandemic uniform of sweatpants and a hoodie for you, and I'm wearing a light colored blouse and a white jacket. I have short curly brown hair, and I'm coming to you live from my living room in my house in Georgetown, Seattle. I'm lucky enough to have known the majority of the members of the Catalyst Quartet since my high school days. And as much as I can say that they're friends, I also have to admit I'm kind of a fangirl of theirs. They are each fantastic, and I'm talking world-class players in their own right, which means their concerts have been electric. So much so that despite the fact that I could probably sneak in the back door of each of their concerts and check them out without having to pay, anytime we wind up being in the same city, I always get a paid ticket to come in and watch their performances. But it isn't just the high quality of playing, it's the repertoire which the Catalyst Quartet brings to their audience. Every concert I've attended, there's been at least two composers that I hadn't heard of, and these pieces are just a fantastic adventure to hear. I haven't had the good fortune to have the Imani Winds in as close an orbit as the Catalyst Quartet, but I have been lurking from afar and enjoying the lively energy of their recordings. In fact, I was just grooving to some Paquito de Rivera just this morning, and I do mean absolutely grooving. This is an ensemble that's been working, performing, evolving, collaborating over the past 2 decades. This is a Grammy-nominated ensemble. This is an ensemble that's pushing the boundaries of commissions and partnerships and even business models. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to dive into some of that with the representatives from both the Catalyst Quartet and the Amani Winds today. I have with me Toyin Spellman-Diaz and Karlos Rodriguez. Toyin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Toyin Spellman-Diaz. I have medium length hair that is looking much better in the pandemic than it has looked in the past, decade and a half. So I have light brown milk chocolate skin, and I'm wearing a t-shirt, a very special t-shirt that has many different famous jazz artists on it, a black t-shirt. So I am the oboist of Imani Winds.
Great, thanks, Toyin. Karlos, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to be with you here today, Joy and Toyin. My name's Karlos Rodriguez, and I'm the cellist of the Catalyst Quartet. I am Cuban American, and I have, I guess, fair skin and medium blonde curly hair. I'm wearing a polka dot shirt with a dark blazer, and I'm coming to you from my cello studio, where I have behind me some of my pictures of my favorite musicians and people that have inspired me, and letters from these people and other memorabilia, which I love to look at while I practice and spend time here. And just, again, thrilled to be with you today.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, guys. So first off, can you guys just tell me a little bit about your ensembles? Perhaps, how long you guys have been playing together, what your ethos is. We can start with the Amani Winds.
Well, Imani Winds has started, it got started in 1997. And I just have to go backwards. And since Karlos talked about what's on his wall, I want to talk about what's on my wall. So back there, I have a painting that was done by my grandfather, who was one of 15 children and the only one to go past third grade, who wound up being a principal of a high school and running a community college in Gretna, Virginia, but he was from North Carolina. And below that is a picture that my daughter made when she was about 6. She's 11 right now. And eventually you'll be seeing her running back and forth as 11-year-olds do. So I've been, and I see a doggy at Joy's house.
We're all full up with dogs, yes. They really do make life better. So.
Okay, good. That's true, especially during a pandemic. So Imani Winds started in 1997 while most of us were still in graduate school. And we were in different schools in New York City, Mannes, Manhattan School, Juilliard. And our flutist and founder, Valerie Coleman, decided she was going to make up a quintet made up of musicians of color. And so she called me and I recommended our bassoonist. And she just found people from the multiple schools around New York City. I think it was a matter of there was a small pool of people, so she couldn't just go to her one school, Manus, and find these people. She had to go outside of the school to find people. And I think that's really a testament to cross-pollination and how that works really well. So we started out just doing concerts around New York, maybe having 10, 15 people attend our conversation, our concerts. And then actually the man who's on my shirt here, I'll just lower it a little, Steve Coleman, he came to one of our 15 populated concerts and said, hey, you want to go on the road with me for 5 weeks in Europe? And we said, heck yeah. And that was the beginning of our touring world. But we've gone on to do all sorts of amazing things that I'm sure we'll get to in our conversation.
Very cool. Very interesting beginnings. Karlos, how about you? What happened with the Catalyst Quartet?
Well, 10 years ago, I got a phone call from people at the Sphinx organization, and that was Afa Siddiqui Dworkin and Aaron Dworkin and Andre Dowell. And there was this notion of starting a new string quartet. And they sort of put it to me, is that something that I would be interested in? Is that something that I felt would be worthwhile, and what that would sort of look like and who would be in it? And that was sort of the very inception of the Catalyst Quartet. It was the notion of the Sphinx organization wanting to promote the careers of the competition laureates, and that being the formation of a new string quartet. And so that was the very beginning of the quartet 10 years ago, I would say, first afternoon phone call. And then we went into the naming process and the membership and the ethos of the repertoire and all that. But for us, the group really does stand for telling stories that are more broadly investigated through great music. And I'd say that whether we're exploring the human condition or a period of time or some artistic literary topic, we use all of the music that we can possibly know about in order to make that story a little bit more clear and a little bit more representative when it comes to the composers that we program. And it has always been the case for us that we like to tell great stories, and we like to use all the great music out there to do it.
Yeah, that's very cool. As I mentioned in my intro, anytime I come to your concerts, I always hear something I've never heard before. And it's not just, like some dud that you guys kind of dusted off and put on the program just for interest's sake, but it's like just lively, energetic, really very interesting threads of this musical story. And I was curious, you mentioned that that's sort of a part of the philosophy of the quartet. Could you talk a little bit more about that process and also what it might mean in terms of booking concerts and that sort of thing, to be playing sort of non-traditional repertoire outside of the usual what you'll hear on the concert hall?
Right. Well, like I said, we try to find great music, and that can be by composers that we've never even heard of, that somebody mentioned to us in passing or at another concert backstage through one of our audience engagement moments. And so it really is a long process, but it happens very organically for us. We spend a lot of time together, as most chamber ensembles do, whether that be in car rides or waiting in airports or even just backstage or at recording sessions, whatever it may be. And there's always chatter about programming. There's always chatter about this piece, that piece, or this concept, or whatever it is. And organically, an idea will come up. And one of those ideas was our first album, the Bach Gould Project, where we arranged Bach's Goldberg variations for string quartet and recorded Glenn Gould's only opus, which is a string quartet, which is a strange thing for a quartet to even think about. But we were stumbling, we were searching on YouTube on a long car ride in Gilroy, California, and came across this Glenn Gould string quartet, and we're like, well, what goes with that? And it's like, oh, Goldberg variations. Oh, but there isn't one for string quartet, doesn't exist. Oh, well, let's make one. So, and then that's how that happens. Our current big project right now, the Uncovered project, came from a colleague, from several colleagues of ours that we know, Robert Davis, Jen Arnold, and I mean, so many other colleagues, Janina Norpoth, and these pieces were being programmed at summer festivals that we were all in attendance for. And we were like, this is great music. What's going on here? And so we started to dive in. And so we were inspired by colleagues. And then we made this commitment to this great Uncovered project, which is the recording and performing of historically important Black composers' quartet music. And so it happens organically for us. It is a long process. It does take sometimes years to make happen. And then, you know, getting it on the concert stage is a whole nother challenge. You know, we can record whatever we want as an independent ensemble, but unless people are out there to hear it, unless we're actually giving people this live experience, which these days, you know, it's you know, challenging to do that, but we're giving virtual live experiences. And so that does then become a challenge, because we have to come up against presenting organizations and people like boards and stuff that make decisions about programming for their audiences. That is challenging for some, but we've been very lucky to find our family of presenters and presenting organizations over the past 10 years to support our work. And much like the Meany Center is one, and Virginia Arts Festival is another. And they're just wonderful, wonderful, really adventurous people out there making great stuff happen. And we hope as an ensemble that spreads across their musical community and presenting organizations, where other people can feel empowered to take risks when it comes to what they put on their series and on their stages.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you so much for explaining a little bit about the backstory of how you do the research and come up with these very interesting repertoire ideas. Sort of in contrast to looking back and filling in the gaps of this thread of classical music, like we've been talking about, I know that the Imani Winds have been doing a lot of work in terms of commissioning, and that would be commissioning new composers to write new works for the Woodwind Quintet. Could you tell me a little bit more about that process, and also what was the motivation for wanting to be so heavily into the commissioning process?
Well, maybe I'll tackle the first part of that question first, which is the why. And it goes back to what we've been doing since we started, which is we want to play for anyone and everyone. And we want to have music that speaks to people. And so, like Karlos was saying, we think a lot about the story behind what we're doing. So early on, I mean, it's been 24 years, right? So the process has changed for quite a bit over the time. Yes, I have been in the ensemble for 24 years. It's a long time. It's a really long time. But it feels like just yesterday that we were getting together sneaking into Juilliard, and we're just getting together to play for fun. But we had right from the beginning 2 composers in the ensemble, our French horn player Jeff Scott and Valerie Coleman, both of whose stars as composers are blowing up. I mean, crazy blowing up. So I'm so happy for them in that sense. But so Valerie was bringing us music right from the beginning, week 2 of getting together and just playing. She was bringing us new music, and Jeff started arranging things. And then in this thing of idea of playing for everyone, we were doing a lot of children's concerts at the beginning. So there's new music for the wind quintet that might just be arrangements. There's nothing wrong with arrangements like the Goldberg variations. That's an excellent example. You know, you have a need that you think people will want to hear, and so you bring it into this ensemble. Now, the wind quintet is also not it's an advantage and a disadvantage. String quartets, God bless you guys, have a ton of repertoire that is incredible. Just masterworks. So you can make a living as a string quartet playing this beautiful music your whole lives. Like, you know, there's lots of string quartets who do that stuff. And I think that's wonderful. But the wind quintet doesn't have that many great pieces to draw from if you want to have a full-time career like Imani Winds wanted to have. right from the beginning. So we had to commission, and we had to arrange. And so when we turned 10, we decided we were already doing this, but we made it a really strong point, and we started this commissioning project called the Legacy Commissioning Project. Where we were specifically going to target commissions from composers of color, and not just from in the classical music world, but also composers from the jazz world, people who play different types of music that are not standard European classical white music. So composers too. And so we worked with a Palestinian oud player. We worked a lot with different Latin artists, Latin jazz artists. And we worked with another person who's on my shirt, Wayne Shorter, who also took us on the road with him for many months. Maybe the highlight of my whole Imani Winds career was going on the road with the incredible jazz saxophonist and composer, maybe the world's greatest living composer of jazz, Wayne Shorter. So, you know, we did these projects, and we made a commitment to definitely commission not only people of color, but people we thought were interesting and who wrote great music. So, okay, so that's turning 10. When we turned 20, you know, we were able to vote at this point, you know, be drafted. The ensemble is, you know, could smoke, but not drink yet. We were, you know, we realized that not only were we going to do that, but we were going to double down on the idea of telling stories with our ensemble that related to the times we're living in. So that goes beyond commissioning to programming. So we built programs around, just to make it relevant to what Karlos was saying, we built a program around Bach's Goldberg variations, but also from the idea of John Coltrane. We combined John Coltrane's music with J.S. Bach's Goldberg variations and put them together. And so it's a large scale program that has a string quartet. We've been playing it with the Harlem String Quartet since the beginning. We as the Wind Quintet, Imani Winds, a jazz trio, and an orator. And the orator is reading his poetry. The orator is my father. And so this program, we've been touring it for maybe 6 years now, but that's, you know, it's an incredible program, and we got to get it on tape. We're going to make that happen next year, you know, because he's 86, you know, it's time to get that down, you know? So yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
I'm surprised you guys don't already have that done. You have over a dozen discs already available. What's the holdup?
It's the lineup of things, you know, and since there are 12 people involved with that, the scheduling is more of a problem. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So
all right, we'll forgive you for the moment.
Thank you. And one last thing about that, which we've never done before, that I'm pretty excited about. We're going to make like a really well-produced video to go along with this, like PBS style video. We've never done that before. So that's a new foray for us too.
Very cool. I love that. That's awesome. So speaking of all of these collaborations that you guys have been doing with various groups, the concert that is being featured here is a collaboration between the Catalyst Quartet and the Amani Winds. Could you talk a little bit about how it is that you guys got together, and what was sort of the tie that binds this concert together, all the rep and that sort of thing? Karlos, do you want to take that over?
Well, no, I was just saying I have known and loved Toyin for like 25 years. And the whole notion of this, this collaboration really came to me from her coming to me and saying, we're going to do this thing. And I'm like, what are we doing? And also from our violinist, Jesse Montgomery, who wrote this new commission for this concert. But I think that, Toyin, you're best to talk about the inception of the whole project.
Sure. So with this idea of doubling down on storytelling through music, we realized we wanted to ask Jesse to commission Jessie to write a piece that was highly personal to her. You know, we're doing a concert with my dad. We wanted her to write music that spoke to her life and who she was as a person. So Jessie said she had this idea for doing a project about her great grandfather. His last name was Crawley. He was a Buffalo soldier, and so he was a really interesting man who lived all over the world. And Jessie decided to take songs, spirituals from the different places where he lived. She found this incredible book that's on Amazon of that catalogs spirituals by state. And so she found spirituals from all everywhere her great grandfather had lived in the United States, and kind of re-expanded them and reimagined them into a completely new piece. And so Jessie and I were talking about this idea, and we were on board all the way. And we said, okay, who are we going to play it with? And we were tossing around, you know, string trio, different chords, and we kept coming back to, well, we want to work with Catalyst, so well, what about a bass play? But what about Catalyst? And so eventually we just settled on the idea of playing with her and with the fabulous Catalyst Quartet. And so we built the program from there. We had this piece that was about Sergeant Crawley, her great grandfather, migrating all over the country. And we were thinking about the idea of migration, the great migration of African Americans around the country from the South to the North, and the idea of immigration, people coming into the country and what that meant. Her great grandfather was also in Panama at one point as a Buffalo soldier. So we brought all that to the Catalyst once we decided we were going to work with them. And they designed their part of the program to go into that idea of migration or immigration, and how that is a catalyst for change.
Nice tie in there. That was awesome.
See what I did there?
I did see that. I caught that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jessie Montgomery. I've also known her since high school days, and I didn't even know she was a composer until just a few years ago, and since that time I've been able to perform one of her quartets a couple times. I've performed one of her duets. She's absolutely awesome, and I love that she is just continuing to produce this really awesome, really needed music, and I love that you guys are performing it. So I know that, Karlos, you mentioned the Uncovered project, which is a project that has already come out, but it sounds like there's a sort of a continuation going on. And I would love to hear more about that project, and also what else is coming up for the Catalyst Quartet. And what has the pandemic been like, and what's it been like trying to work together?
Yeah. Well, the Uncovered project, we released volume 1 of the recorded end of things on February 5th. And volume 1 features all of the string quartet music of Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who is an incredible Afro-British composer who lived in the sort of end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, and had an incredible story, an incredible career, came to the United States from London and met with our president and inspired tremendous choral ensembles here. I mean, had an incredible life in like 39 years. And so that album, volume 1, features 2 other artists that we love, Anthony McGill playing clarinet and Stuart Goodyear playing piano. And so we have a clarinet quintet, we have a group of 5 fantasy pieces of Samuel Coleridge Taylor, and we have a wonderful piano quintet. And so that's volume 1. And so the Uncovered project is that recording element, but it's also presenting all of these things in concert on a series, either just as a string quartet or with collaborators. And it's multi-volume, so we're devoting each volume to a different composer or a group of composers. Volume 2, which we'll be recording in a couple weeks, is all of the music of Florence Price. And this will probably be 2 discs if you're in CD land. And this end of the Uncovered project really, I feel, is probably the most vital, because we're actually, the reason she's like volume 2 and not volume 1 is because we didn't know where all of her music was or what all of her music was. So we're in the process of getting in touch with libraries and archives and publishers and friends to find and actually uncover her music. So in some cases, we're using her physical manuscripts to play this music. And so that is a collection of string quartets and counterpoint exercises and piano quintets. And it's gonna be a tremendous, tremendous volume 2, Florence Price. Volume 3 will feature music of William Grant Still, Coleridge Taylor Perkinson, and George Walker. Volume 4 will most likely be devoted to the Chevalier de Saint-Georges, Joseph Boulogne, and his terribly difficult little classical string quartets. Also an incredible human being, like lived like this crazy epic life. So that's like the really other cool part about the Uncovered project is we're not just uncovering the music, we're uncovering these people and their lives and realizing like how incredible just people are incredible. People can do really incredible stuff and have amazing experiences and like, what are their stories? But it's also to make the music accessible, the physical sheet music accessible to people, because how are people in the future going to be able to play this music? It's also about programming, putting down recordings so people can hear this music and be like, oh, that sounds good, we should hear that. And then more audiences get exposure. It's maybe then taught more in schools. And it's also, I think, important for young composers coming up to hear their musical legacy. These historically important Black composers have a very unique and specific voice. It's really incredible. And that, that information I think is important for young composers too, to have access to that lineage for themselves and to develop their own craft. As far as things coming up in the quartet, we also have our 10th anniversary project, which is a commissioning project, ironically, and it's called CQ Minute. And it explores the attention spans of today in miniature string quartets, which are around under a minute or a minute and change, and by 10 phenomenal composers for each year of the group. We're commissioning people like Joan Tower, Paquito de Rivera, Kishi Bashi, Caroline Shaw, Kevin Putz. It's just mind-blowing. I mean, it's all ages, all different styles of music. And it's really cool. And a really, really awesome part about that is that there's one composer who we do not know who it's going to be, because it's going to be a national competition for a young composer, for the ability for us to sort of foster new composing talent. And so we're looking at opening that application process shortly. And that's really cool. The other interesting part about that CQ Minute project is it will be released as a video album. So each one of these compositions by each one of these different composers will be a kind of short film. So there's a video element, there's a playing it on stage element, there's a compositional talent element, development element, and a commissioning element. And it sort of also explores the spectrum of the music that we play, which literally is all music. So that's on the horizon. And that, I guess, will be our next big focus. But there's like a lot of different things going on. The pandemic has been really great for us because we've been able to find new ways and be a little bit more creative about what we do. Luckily, some of us live like literally walking distance from one another. So we've been able to get together, rehearse, and have sort of potted in that way. And with the release of Volume 1 of Uncovered, it's incredibly timely. This project, a lot of people are programming this music, and I think that's so awesome. Like, we don't want to be the only ones playing this music. We want everyone to play this music or to hear this music. And so, like, come on board. But this project for us is years old. We've been working on the Uncovered project for years. It's taken a long time, and it just turns out that right now is the time for this music, and we couldn't have predicted it. We thought 3 years ago was the time for this music. Probably 20 years ago was the time for this music. But it takes what it takes for times to change and for perceptions to shift. And so we've been lucky enough that it's gotten a lot of attention. And so we've been busy with radio interviews and news interviews and things like that, and some virtual performing. And like I said, we're about to record volume 2, Florence Price of Uncovered, this April. So it's a mixed bag of things, and it's kind of cool, but we can't wait to get back to performing for people, and to engage, for, you know, engaging with people, because that's really why we do what we do, isn't it?
Very cool. I am here for all of that. I approve wholeheartedly. This sounds very exciting. I love the idea of, you know, having 10 different composers and even having a competition element. I mean, it's just like very cutting edge and really pushing the envelope. I love that. And I think it's something that's, you know, required for modern ensembles. I would say it's been required for any sort of ensemble to be looking for ways to be innovative, looking for ways to be creative and interesting, entertaining without watering down what it is that we actually do. And I think you guys are doing a really excellent job of that. That's very exciting. I look forward to all of that coming out. And Toyin, I know that the Imani Winds just came out with the Brute album. Could you tell me a little bit more about that and what that process was like? And also what else is coming up in the future for you guys?
Well, okay, I'd be happy to. And let me just say how excited I am for Catalyst to be the go-to group for this music that is going to be from these incredible composers. That is just going to be so wonderful for your careers, and for it, just having it all in one place where people can see it, that is, or hear it, and use it as a reference point. Like, you're going to be the ones when they say, which of Florence Price's pieces should we play? Let's listen to the Catalyst ones, and we'll just go through them and we'll find the one we really like. And I think that is so smart. I'm so excited for you guys to do that. And you're really expanding string quartet repertoire, or highlighting string quartet repertoire that already exists in a really wonderful way. So I'm very, very excited for you all too. So just wanted to point that out. So yes, we have a recording, also Years in the Work, where we've been telling stories relevant to today's times. Um, and we have amassed a group of commissions that are really cool, and we wanted to put them together. So the album Brutes, by the way, Brutes is, or bruit in French, it's the sound that a blocked artery makes when the blood is rushing through it, or blocked. So the idea of this album was to highlight how the society is blocked and needs to be cleared in order for society to work well again. So the pieces that are on here are all different versions of stories for that. So just briefly, the first one on there is the titular piece, which is called Brutes. And it's very timely to today and to Meanie and all everyone at this particular moment in time. It's about the trial of the murderer of Trayvon Martin. The composer of the piece, Vijay Iyer, was in residence in Florida at the time, and he was commissioned to write a piece about Florida, and the trial was going on of George Zimmerman at the time, and the stand your ground law was so important. So he wrote the stand your ground law, the statute, into the piece. Like, we are reading it out loud while music is going on at the same time. And that's a piano sextet, different from the string piano sextet that you two are familiar with. But the winds plus piano, and it's the great Corey Smythe, who is our pianist. The second piece on there is by Rena Esmail, who is an incredible composer and thinker and leader at this point. She's at New Music USA, turning them around and making them a better organization as we speak. And she wrote us a piece called The Light is the Same. And that piece was written to go along, here's the story idea, with the 100th anniversary of the composition of Gustav Holst's The Planets. So we had an arrangement of the planets that we do, and we wanted Rena to write a piece about the stars from the Hindustani tradition and what kind of uh, uh, um, cosmology, like astrology, religion comes around from planets and the stars. And she wrote this piece, and the idea of it is you're looking at the same lights, because the planets is about planets. You're looking at the same bodies, heavenly bodies, but you have an entirely different meaning from it. So isn't that a great metaphor for how we should all just celebrate what we have in front of us? And then the last piece on there is about a wonderful historian, John Hope Franklin. He was an African-American man. He was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. His father, ironically enough, was a banker at Black Wall Street in Tulsa, and his firm was destroyed in the Tulsa race riots. And John Hope Franklin was an amazing historian who concentrated on Reconstruction era in his studies, which is a time where people of color were finally able to run for office, political office, own things, have greater wealth. And so it was a really magical time that is an excellent example. And this is what John Hope Franklin did. He took that idea of Reconstruction around the world to different businesses, different governments, about coming together in an equitable manner. And so we had Fred Jeffsky, who is often writes about social issues in his work. And so he wrote us a piece about John Hope Franklin. And that was the third piece on the album. So all different points, 3 different points, all coming to the same center, which is let's all get together and think of things, think of ways through this blocked artery that we all live in. So, so that's that album. Other things that we have going forward. This is a really crazy thing that speaks to entrepreneurship that you were talking about, Joy. We've been for 24 years, right? 21 of those years, we were a for-profit organization. And 3 years ago, we decided to become a not-for-profit organization. And the reason for that was we wanted to think beyond ourselves. We're always thinking about being a wind quintet. You know, we were making money, so that was great. But what about these other projects that we have, like our chamber music festival, where we teach a bunch of students? And we wanted to be agents of change for the next generation more, and mentor more students. So we want to expand our chamber music festival. We want to expand the idea of mentorship, and so we're working on that through our foundation. So that's I'm the president of that foundation, and so I have to make reads and practice and also do that work, which is a lot. But you know, I know you know, Joy.
Yeah, they don't teach us that in music school, but that whole administrative side of things is
right.
There's a lot to it. So.
Yeah, I'm lucky that Monica is the kind of business person of Imani Winds, and I get to expand upon that and come up with ideas that we all work out together. So that's been a tremendous learning opportunity for me and the group, and I think there's going to be some great stuff coming out of that in the future, including we want to start a mentorship program with college age students of color, where we take them to different really well-run community centers around the country and have them talk to, especially run by people of color, and have them talk to the programs to see how they work well, so they can create their own programs. So, you know,
sign me up.
I know, right? Come on, Joy.
Yeah, let me know the dates, times. I'll be there. Well, that's really awesome. These are just such exciting projects, and so timely, unfortunately, because a lot of the things that we're sort of talking about are questions of the past and stories of the past that are still sadly relevant today. But perhaps in examining them in all of these different ways, we'll be able to, you know, get past that blockage. So both of you have been talking a little bit about education, working with kids, working with students, and also just performing in general. You know, Karlos said he's looking forward to getting back to in-person performances and communing with the audience. I'm curious, what is your philosophy behind education or teaching? I believe this performance in particular was an educational performance. So yeah, what's the reason behind why you guys do this, and what are some of the things that you get out of it?
Well, I will just speak briefly on this. We have always in the quartet really taken education seriously, whether it be when we're performing to engage with schools and the communities where we are, or through our work with the Sphinx organization and the Sphinx Performance Academy, whatever it may be. Because there's this chatter of, the classical music is dying and all this other stuff. It only dies if we let it, and that responsibility is ours. And talking about diversification of audiences, talking about and listenership and whatever it may be, that's our job. There are a lot of other people that we need to help us make that happen too, and we need those good voices in the room in order to help our work get out there and to be accessible for people. But by focusing on education, not just performing and recording, we can help to expose the minds and the ears to young kids and to the audiences of tomorrow, much like Toyin was talking about in the Amani's endeavors with the education legacy. It's sort of like we need to do this work now and get with the kids and get with the seniors, and get with everybody, and just get the music out there. It's about, access, it's about exposure, it's about giving kids the opportunity to hear something that might change their lives. And, I remember when I was a kid growing up in Miami, Florida, and they would have music groups come into the public school, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? This is really something else. And it inspired me. It inspired me to maybe get into music, or going to free concerts in the community that I was going to as a kid. And those things do make a difference, because I'm sitting here talking to you two wonderful people about music, however many years later, as a result, in some part, to those educational performing experiences that I had as a kid. And so the more that we lean into that, I think the better we all will be in our respective fields, and better the world will be, hopefully. And that also can stem to, the finer points of education when it comes to mentoring college students who are in performing, track careers. And we do a lot of that, and that's very rewarding. I'm actually, after we finish our conversation here, going to have a Zoom lesson with a student of mine who has just basically got into all the colleges that she applied to. So we're gonna have a really exciting, fun conversation today. And so that's another part of education, because then she, who I find to be one of the most awesome people that I know, is gonna go change the world in her own right, and potentially, take my gig. So it's sort of, education is the foundation of what we want to see for our societies and for our art. And I think that's why we like to focus on it.
Wow, that's awesome. It sort of sounds like what you're trying to say is that art is important to society and it should be for everyone. I love that.
Absolutely.
Toyin, how about you? What is the Amani philosophy behind education? Why is it that you guys engage so much with these various programs?
Yeah, I think that idea of art is for everyone is really important, and something that Imani Winds always has focused on. I, as my teaching philosophy is, I'm going to help you be you, basically. So that's just my own personal thing, and I think that kind of philosophy behind education should apply to all chamber musicians everywhere, and all classical music everywhere. Like, I think music is doing a good job of preserving, the classical music world is doing a great job of preserving what history has done. But what it hasn't done a great job of is showing why this is important or relevant to people who are living now. And I think that's part of the reason, the stuff that our education concerts or our work within communities is about. So when we play for some elementary school students, which we've done a lot of through our lives as an ensemble, we make it fun. We're having all sorts of fun with them and cracking all sorts of jokes. We're bringing music from around the world to them, not just, again, white European classical music. And we're also showing that there are people who look like us who play these instruments. And that's an incredibly powerful tool, not just for people of color, but also for everyone. For everyone to see that there's no boundaries to this music. I remember I was once looking at this Venn diagram of who the audience is for chamber music, and they had orchestra over here and opera over here, and chamber music was all the we were all the classical music people, but the rock and roll, the other, not hip hop, they were nowhere near chamber music. Nowhere near it. So in the Venn diagram. So I feel like chamber music, what Karlos was talking about at the very beginning, like having pieces that are iconic. I feel like chamber music is also the place of experimentation. That's what Karlos was kind of talking about. And I feel like if we could bring that experimentation out of its even, I mean, you know, there's people like who wrote John Cage. You know, John Cage did crazy things in concerts. He would be like, "Thank you, everyone. Great music, great concert." But he didn't have the why. The why, I'll give it to you, John Cage, may you rest in peace. You know, why is that important to somebody who's living on the streets of 1960s Harlem? I don't know. So we're trying to bring that why to chamber music in general for every age level, and hopefully that will be good. So that's our philosophy. This is for everyone, like Karlos and you were saying.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And something that you also mentioned in there about, you know, showing that people like us do play this music and we bring our best selves to it.
That's right.
And I just love both of these groups so much. You guys are sort of cracking open this really important portal in the classical music world, and it's very exciting. And this has been a really wonderful conversation, and it's been great to be able to chat with you guys about this particular concert and about your future projects going forward. I cannot wait until they come into fruition, and I can't thank you guys enough. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Toyin.
Yes, Karlos. See you soon.
Toyin and I will see each other soon, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And Joy, I hope you're in Seattle when we're there.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot wait for the next
long. And the last time we were there,
in-person.
you totally surprised us, just like you said. I was like, I thought you weren't even in town, and there you were running backstage. It's like,
bought my ticket.
You really do it.
Well, you know, I only go to the good concerts, so what can be done?
Totally. That's why you haven't been to our concert.
No, it's just an accident of timing.
I'm just kidding.
The next one, you know where I'll be.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and I look forward to the future. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.